In today's tutorial, I'm going to use Inkscape version 91 to show you how to create this this aged-looking film roll logo concept that I came up with. So in order to do this tutorial, you will need a font called Beebus that I'm using here. If you haven't already downloaded and installed it, go ahead and download and install it from the link in the description before you open up Inkscape. And then once you do that, we will be ready to get started. So this should be your view when you first open up Inkscape. Let's go to File, let's go to Document Properties. Let's uncheck that box to get rid of the lines on the page and close out of that menu. And we're going to open up the Align and Distribute menu, and then we'll open up the Edit Objects, Colors, Gradients, and Stroke menu. And we'll go to View, we're going to have Custom selected, and then Zoom, we're going to zoom in at 1:1. So, oh yeah, from this Align and Distribute menu, make sure you have Last Selected chosen. And then we'll be ready to go. The first thing we're going to do is create a square. So come over to the Create Squares and Rectangles button. Let's click on that. And let's hold Control and Shift on the keyboard and click and drag on the canvas to create a nice perfect square, kind of like that. Go to our arrow and drag this to the center of the page. Let's drop the opacity on this in half so we can see through separate layers while we're working. And then we're going to go to our Bezier pen. We're going to click on that. And we're going to bring the cursor to right outside the top of the box up here. We're going to click once and then hold Control and just bring the line over here. And then once you get over here, go ahead and click again and then hit Enter, and it's going to create a nice straight line like that. And then we'll go to our Edit Paths by Nodes button, and then we're going to click on this line and just drag it like that. Let's go over to this node up here. Let's grab this handle and oops, I missed it. There we go. We'll go and grab that node kind of like that. We'll grab this kind of like that. And we want to set it up so that we have it's going up and then it dips down and then comes back up. Once we have it like that, we're pretty good. So we can go to our arrow and we can convert that into a path. So we'll go to Path, Stroke to Path. Then we can right click that and go to Duplicate. And then hold Control on the keyboard and click and drag this down to about right to about here. You want about this much space between those two lines. You want it to be about that fat right there. So we're going to hold Shift and click on this other line so we both have them selected, and we'll go to Path Union and then hold Shift in the keyboard and click on the square and go to Path Difference, and then we'll go to Path Break Apart, and then we can click off of that graphic to deselect everything. Now let's click on this top part up here and let's press Delete on the keyboard to get rid of that. Then we'll click on this bottom part right here, press Delete on the keyboard to get rid of that. And then I'm just going to write, I'm just going to grab the text tool over here. And I'm going to click on the canvas. I'm just going to put on the caps lock. I'm going to type in film roll. And then I'm going to go back to the arrow and go up to the text tool up here. We're going to find that font that we downloaded called Beebus. I'm actually going to turn off the caps lock. I don't need that anymore. Click Apply to set that as the font. Then we can close out of that menu. And let's take this and put this on top of here. And let's hold Control and Shift. And let's enlarge this thing about this big. We want this thing to be about that big, kind of like that. Then we can hold Control and just click and drag this off to here, down there. We're going to put that aside for a moment. Now let's click on this shape right here and let's right click that and go to Duplicate. We'll turn that green. And then we'll right click it and we'll duplicate it again. We'll turn that red. And let's hold Control and click and drag this red copy down to about right about there. And then we can hold Shift and click on the green copy and we'll go to Path Intersection. And then hold Shift in the keyboard and click on the black object behind it. And we're going to center that up on the horizontal axis. So you should end up with something like this. And then we can click off of it to deselect everything. Now let's take our text and click on that and let's raise that to the top. Let's click this button, Raise Selection to the top. And let's bring this up here. Make sure, we just want to eyeball it. We want to make sure we have it pretty big. We're going to put this right here and we're going to hold Shift and click on the green object. Let's center it on the vertical axis and the horizontal axis. And then we can click off of that to deselect everything. Now let's go to our Create Squares and Rectangles tool. And let's click and drag and create a rectangle going over the letter F. You want to make sure this thing is taller than this entire graphic right here, kind of like what you see here. Once you get to about that, let's go to the arrow and then we can manipulate the shape a little further. So we're just going to make this about the same width as the letter F rather. And then we're going to right click this and go to duplicate, hold Control, move this over to the letter I. We're going to do the same thing. Make that about the same width. Right click that and go to duplicate, hold Control, click and drag this over to the letter L. Make that about the same width. Instead of right clicking and going to duplicate, you can hold Control on the keyboard and press D, and that'll create another duplicated copy. So Control D and then hold Control and click and drag this over to the letter M. Let's make that about the same width. Control D to create another copy. Hold Control, bring this over here. Control D. Let's bring this over here. And as you can see, we're going to do this for all of the letters. Control D, and let's bring this over here. Now let's hold Shift on the keyboard and click on every one of these red stripes we just created. So we have them all selected. And then come over here to where it says Distribute. We're going to make the horizontal gaps between objects equal. We're going to click on that. And it's going to space them all out evenly. And we're going to go to Path, Union, and then hold Shift on the keyboard and click on this green object that we created. Let's just make sure we have this centered up on the vertical axis and the horizontal axis. Once we have it all centered up, we can go to Path, Intersection. Now let's take our text and let's hold Control, and actually no, you don't have to hold Control. Let's just click and drag this out of the way. Let's go to Path, Object to Path, and then ungroup it. So every single one of these letters becomes an editable path. We're going to make each one of these letters take the form of these green boxes right here, so it goes along the shape of what's going to be the film strip. So once you have them ungrouped, let's drop the opacity in half. Let's turn them red just so we can distinguish them from what we're going to do next. And then we're going to go to our Bezier pen. Let's click on the Bezier pen, and we're going to turn on the Snap to Cusp nodes. And then we're going to go and draw a box around each one of these green shapes. And we're going to do it in a clockwise way. We're going to start at the top left corner and then work clockwise and finish up that way. So we're going to do that for each one of these boxes. I'll show you. Start here and go there, and go there, and go there, and then finish up at the starting point. Then we're going to do the same thing for the next box. Top left corner, working in clockwise fashion. It's very important that we go within this order here, or else what we're going to do next will not work. And then we're going to go and do that for each one of these boxes. And in order to make this video not overwhelmingly long, I'm just going to go ahead and put this video on pause so I can finish up drawing these boxes, and then I will catch up with you then. Okay, so now we have all of the boxes drawn in. So let's go to our arrow and click on that. Let's turn off the Snap to Cusp nodes. We don't need that any longer. And let's click on that green object and then press Delete on the keyboard to get rid of that. And let's take the letter F, let's click on that, and then hold Shift and click on that first shape right there. And with them both selected, let's go to Extension, Modify Path, and we're going to select Envelope. And that's going to make the letter F take the shape of that box. And we're going to do the same thing with every one of these letters. We're going to click on this letter I, hold Shift, click on that shape, go to Extension, Modify Path, Envelope. And there we have it. And we're going to go and do this with each and every single one of these letters. And again, for the sake of redundancy, I'm just going to put the video on pause while I finish up making these letters take the shape of these boxes. So if you've gone and made each and every one of these letters, if you've done the envelope function, each one of these letters, it should be something like this. I saved this very last one for the end just to make sure, just to go over it a second time. We click the letter, and then we hold Shift and click on the shape. Go to Extension, Modify Path, Envelope. And it's important we click on the letter first and then the box, because there's a particular order that needs to be followed in order for this effect to work. Alright, so anyway, once we're finished, it should look like this. And then we're going to go and click on these little boxes that we drew. We're just going to delete them. So just press Delete on the keyboard, click on the box, press Delete on the keyboard, click on the box, delete, 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 delete. If you accidentally delete the letter, you can just go to Edit, undo, or you can click the undo button up here, or you can just press Control and Z. That's the undo function in Inkscape. Go ahead and delete that. Alright, so once we're done, it should look something like this. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to click on this. Actually, no, let's click and drag over all of these letters, and let's unify them together. So click and drag over all of them so you have them all selected. Make sure that you don't have the box selected as well. We just want the letters. You can avoid grabbing the box by starting out with the cursor over here and going like that, and then it'll just grab the letters. Once you have all of the letters grabbed without that black stripe, let's go to Path, Union, unify them together. Now the next thing we will do is, this actually, I made a mistake in creating this. There's a little too much, there's not enough padding between the letters and the edge here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this, and then I'm going to go to the Edit Paths by Nodes button, and I'm going to click and drag over all of these top nodes right here. So I select them all, and then I'm going to hold Control, and I'm going to click and drag these up to about here. That's about, we want it about that much taller. And once we've done that, we can go back to the arrow and then hold Shift and click on the word film roll, and then we can center that up on the horizontal axis. And there we go. That's more along the lines of what I should have done from the start. So my apologies for that. Let's click off of that to deselect everything. Let's click on just this black ribbon right here. Let's right click that and go to duplicate. Let's turn that green. And then we can right click this green copy, duplicate it again. Let's turn that blue. And let's hold Control and click and drag this down to about, right about there. And then hold Shift and click on that green copy so you have them both selected. And we'll go to Path, Difference. Now let's right click this and go to Duplicate. And let's actually press the plus key on the keyboard so we can zoom in and have a better view of what we're doing. You can press plus and minus to zoom in and out, or you can hold Control and use the mouse wheel to zoom in and out. So we have our duplicated copy. Let's right click that and duplicate it again, and then we'll turn it blue. And let's hold Control and click and drag this down to about, right about there, a little more than halfway through. This would be about halfway through right here. We want this to go a little more than halfway through, about that much. And then we can hold Shift and click on the green one beneath it. Let's go to Path, Difference, and let's turn that blue so we can see it. And then hold Shift and click on that green stripe beneath it. And let's center that up on, what is that, the horizontal axis. And then we can press 1 on the keyboard to zoom back out. So we should end up with something like that. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a rectangle. Let's just click and drag to create a rectangle going over this thing. Kind of like that. Let's make sure we have this thing taller than the entire graphic. And let's make this green, I guess. We'll make this green for now. And then we can go back to our arrow. And let's start this out about right here. And then we're going to right click this and go to duplicate. And then while holding Control on the keyboard, click and drag this duplicated copy over to about here. And then press the space bar. And that's going to make a copy, and you can click and drag it over and make some more copies. We were holding Control the entire time and just sliding the mouse cursor and pressing spacebar to make copies. So we're just going to do this a bunch of times. And let's put that right about there. Once we get to that last one, let's hold Shift and click on the black ribbon. And let's make sure we let's align that to the right edge. And then we'll click on this one on the left. Then we can click on this one on the left, and then hold Shift and click on this the black ribbon in the background, and we can align that to the left edge. And then let's click off of the graphic to deselect everything. Now let's click on just this green stripe and then hold Shift and then click on the rest of the green stripes so we can select them all at one time. And once we have them all selected, let's go down here to where it says make horizontal gaps between objects equal. We're going to click that, and then we're going to unify them all together. We're going to go to Path, Union. And then we're going to zoom in using either the plus key on the keyboard or control in the wheel. And then we're going to hold shift and click on that blue stripe right beneath it. And with them both selected, we'll go to path, intersection. And then we can press 1 on the keyboard to zoom back out. And then we can hold shift and click on the green stripe beneath that. Then we can go to path, difference. And then we can right click this and go to duplicate. And then hold shift and click on the black film strip beneath it, and we can align it at the bottom edges, kind of like that. Okay, now we can click off of the graphic to deselect everything. Now let's click on just this black film strip right here, and let's go to stroke paint, and let's turn the stroke on with that blue button right there, and come over to stroke style, and let's give this, make sure we have the miter join and the butt cap right there. We're going to give this a 20-point stroke. Let's see how that looks. Maybe a little bigger. Let's go with 25. Okay, once you get to 25, that's pretty good. We'll go to path, stroke to path. Then we'll go to path, break apart, and then path, union. And then we'll go back to the stroke. We'll turn that on again. We'll go to the fill, we'll turn that off, and we'll go back to stroke style, and let's make this 5. Actually, no, that's a little too thin. Let's try 10. Okay, 10 works. Then we'll go to path, stroke to path. And then we can click and drag over this whole thing, and we can bring the opacity on that all the way up, and we can make that one solid color, kind of like that. And then let's group this together. We can go to the group function right here, group. And then this is actually a little too tall. I'm actually going to take this arrow, and I'm just going to bring that in a little bit, kind of like that, just to make that look a little better. And there you have our film roll with text on it. So the next thing we'll do is we will create a polygon. So come over to the stars and polygons button. Make sure you have polygon selected, 6 corners, 0 rounded, and 0 randomized. And once you have those values set, just hold Control and Shift in the keyboard, and let's click and drag to create a polygon with the corners going up and down like that. And then we come over to Stroke Paint. We could turn that off. And let's turn this red and then come back to the arrow, and let's drop the opacity in half. And let's hold Shift and then click on our film strip and center it on the vertical and horizontal axis like that. And then let's click off of it. Let's click and drag this out. Hold Control and Shift to click and drag this out to about here. And then we'll right click this and go to duplicate and turn that green. Hold Control and Shift and bring this into about here. And then let's right click this green copy and go to duplicate and hold Shift and click on the red polygon beneath it. And we'll go to path, difference. And then click on this green one in the middle. Let's hold Control and Shift, and let's scale this in a little bit to about there. Alright, so the next thing we'll do is we're going to create some more rectangles. So let's go to the Create Rectangles tool, and let's create a nice long rectangle, longer than the entire graphic like that. About that width is pretty good. And we'll turn that blue, and let's go back to the arrow and hold Shift and click on the green polygon. Let's center that on the horizontal axis, and then let's align that to the left edge. And then let's click off of it to deselect everything. And we're going to do what we did before. We're going to click this, and we're going to right click it and go to duplicate, and then hold Control and just slide it around with the mouse and make copies with the space bar. And then once you get to here, let go of that, then hold Shift and click on the green polygon, and let's align that to the right edge. And then we can click off of that to deselect everything. Now let's hold Shift in the keyboard and let's click on each one of these blue stripes we just created so we have them all selected. And let's space them out evenly. Make horizontal gaps between objects equal. We'll click on that. We'll go to Path, Union, and then hold Shift and click on the green polygon in the background. And we'll go to Path, Intersection. And then we're going to take our film strip. Let's raise this to the top. And then let's ungroup it with the Ungroup button. Then we can click off of that to deselect everything. Now let's take this border right here. See this right here? We're going to click on that. And we're going to right click it and go to duplicate. And let's turn it blue. Let's turn it red so we can see what we're doing. And we're going to go to Path, Break Apart, Path, Union. And then let's right click it and go to duplicate again. And then hold Shift and let's click on these green stripes. Let's go to Path, Difference. And then click on the other red copy and then hold Shift and click on the red polygon outline in the background and go to Path, Difference. And from here we should be able to click and drag over this whole thing and go to Path, Union. And then it should be one solid object just like that. Let's bring the opacity up. Let's turn it black. And in the description you will see I have included a link to an image called Scratched. It's a scratch texture. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to use that to mask over this graphic to give it an aged look. So go ahead and open up that link, save that image into a folder where you can easily access it. And once you do that, we'll go to File, Import. And we'll find that scratch.png. There it is right there, scratch.png. We'll open that. Click OK. And let's actually zoom out a little bit by pressing the minus key. And let's hold Shift and let's click on this and then hold Shift and click on the logo. And let's center it up on the horizontal and vertical axis. We can go to Object, Mask, Set. And as you can see, it'll give it a nice, like a worn out kind of aged look. I'm actually going to make that gray a little bit. And you can do whatever you want. You could actually still change the color on this to whatever you'd like. And that's pretty much it. That's the entire tutorial. So if you have any questions, just let me know. And again, thank you for watching.